Well, now in Scottish, a life well lived.
Last May, Scottish television chairman Bill Brown, with his wife Nancy, his family and friends from show business, from the media and from music and the arts in Scotland, celebrated Bill's retirement after almost 40 years with Scottish television. A month later, he was knighted in the birthday honours list. Bill had just retired as chairman of the Scottish Arts Council. His knighthood was for services to broadcasting and the arts in Scotland. An old friend knighted in the same list was Jeremy Isaacs.
I got the letter saying you're going to get a knighthood. The day of the Queen's birthday honours list came. I opened the paper. Bill had a knighthood in the same honours list. I was very happy. I wrote him a letter. Dear Bill, snap. Yours, Jeremy. A few weeks later, when I knew the date of the investiture, I wrote to him saying, would you and Nancy, are you coming down? Will you come to the party we're giving? I got a letter back from Nancy saying Bill wouldn't be able to come. I thought it was the cruelest, harshest thing that life could do. One day it was snap, and the next day fate was tearing us apart in that terrible way.
Bill Brown was taken suddenly ill and unable to travel. Prince Philip did Bill the rare honour of coming to confer his knighthood in Glasgow City Chambers. Bill died just months into his retirement. This is a tribute to him and to a life well lived. Bill Brown was born in 1929 in the town of Ayr. He went to Ayr Academy, then on to Edinburgh University. Bill did his national service as a lieutenant in the Royal Artillery in the early 50s. In 1957, Scottish television had been founded by a Canadian newspaper owner, Roy Thompson. Thompson's STV broadcast from Glasgow's Theatre Royal and attracted huge audiences.
Sit back and relax. It's the 1 o'clock gang. Who is he?
The relentless one, sire.
Bill, by this time, was married to Nancy Hunter, a Canadian Scot. Bill joined STV as its advertising sales manager. A personal friend whose popularity regularly boosted STV's ratings was Kenneth McCLUE, also an early business colleague.
We met during various engagements I had at STV, and then we both were on the board of Radio Clyde before it actually got the license to broadcast. So we were in the position of choosing some of the executives who came on, and we've remained on it really ever since.
Immediately successful, Radio Clyde was the creation of one of Bill Brown's apprentices at Cowcaddens, one-time political editor of STV, Jimmy Gordon.
STV was sort of founder members of the consortium that formed Radio Clyde, which won the licence to broadcast West Central Scotland. And when I was writing the application, I remember Bill was one of the people I turned to for advice. And he was unstinting with his time, and actually down to very detailed comments. It wasn't just, yes, well, I've read it, that's fine. He would actually go over it and make changes, all of which were very much for the better. And he really gave a lot of time to helping, and I felt very grateful.
Bill Brown himself rose rapidly to become one of the youngest bosses in a young industry. At 36, Bill was made managing director of STV. One of his biggest stars was Ricky Fulton, then a smash hit with Jack Mulroy in Francie and Josie.
Oh, but you remember it?
I'll never forget it, Josie. The Baroo.
Box 4.
And a flushy brown pine is out.
Flushy brown. Flushy brown. They kept him on when they built STV, you know.
No.
Ah, he's a managing director.
I can always remember this man popping out from, I think his office must have been somewhere on the left-hand side looking to the stage. And he used to come out, obviously, for a breather, and he was always in his shirt sleeves. And I was a very warm man, a happy man, I would have said. I would have thought this was a man who just loved his work. There was in fact, I don't think I've ever seen Bill Brown without a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face.
Despite the popularity of Scottish television in its first decade, the Independent Broadcasting Authority decided that it would be better for its public service reputation if it was not controlled by a Canadian newspaper baron, especially one who boasted that STV was a license to print money. Roy Thomson was forced to sell his shares in 1969. The man now firmly in charge was Bill Brown, who inherited trouble. STV now looked like becoming a license to lose money.
I think it's easy, given the success of STV now, to forget just how difficult things were for television in the early days. I mean, there were some people who thought it really wasn't going to get off the ground at all. Now, that was the late 50s. But STV had always one of the highest audiences in the country. And even despite that, there were, as I recall, financial problems in the early 60s because of Roy Thomson being required to sell down his stake by the Independent Broadcasting Authority. And things were quite rocky, and really it was Bill's hand at the helm that made sure that STV survived. And not only survived, but survived as an independent company.
The year control passed from Roy Thomson to Bill Brown, Bill's crisis management skills were fully tested. The Glasgow studios burned down, and STV was in deep financial trouble. Bill's leadership through this period of crisis brought job offers from the bigger ITV companies in England. He turned them all down. His commitment was to Scotland and Scottish television. And another contest for the broadcasting licence was approaching. Former chairman of Scottish Development Agency and personal friend, Sir Robin Duthie.
Fairly early on in our relationship, that your franchise came up for renewal. And at that time, Lord Thomson had said that it was a licence to print money. And there were several large consortia being put together. And I was asked to join one of these consortia. And I said that I wouldn't consider it because it would have meant being on the wrong side of Bill Brown. I think perhaps Bill's circle of friends has increased so substantially in that intervening period that the last time you went forward for your franchise, he was able to avoid any confrontation whatsoever.
London is the network centre of ITV, a federation of 15 independent regional companies across the UK, and Bill became ITV's elder statesman. From London Weekend Television, a young ITV colleague went on to run the BBC, Director General John Burt.
Bill was at the very heart of the ITV system over a period of decades, since he himself was quite a young man, and there were few in the ITV system that carried the respect that Bill did. Indeed, the thing that struck me joining the top table in ITV was that when Bill spoke, the room went silent, because he was one of those people that spoke with real economy and only spoke, a rarity sometimes in our industry, when he had something to say. And Bill was a man who always represented the interests of his company, of course, and very successfully over a very long period of time. But he did it by having a sense of the whole picture. He had an acute sense of how the ITV system worked, what it was about, what it was for, how all the different pieces of the jigsaw fitted together. And when others perhaps were sometimes a little petty, looked at the short term, sometimes lost their way, Bill was always the person who spoke up, set out the vision, painted the picture over the longer term, and gave a meeting often a sense of purpose and a sense of direction. He was really one of the most important leaders in the ITV system over a very long period of time, and he's sorely missed.
Bill Brown rebuilt the fortunes of Scottish television in the 1970s and strengthened its commitment to public service television. Its licence to broadcast in central Scotland was renewed in every franchise round. Now controlled from Cowcaddens by Scots, the company again prospered. It nurtured some of the most promising young talents in Scotland.
Bill Brown was exactly the man to lead Scottish television into the new era. When you met him, he was calm, he had a common sense approach. He gave you a confidence about a company that was moving forward. He had this tremendous sense of public service, absolutely crucial to Scottish television, but also to the work he did in the arts. And he was utterly straightforward.
As well as investing in more serious politics, current affairs and documentaries, Scottish television in the 1970s expanded its local drama output, to the delight of Scottish actors, then a much smaller troupe than today.
Ochtan is small. Glendarach's even smaller.
First time I met Bill, he was speaking in charge of this shareholders meeting. My first impression was, you know, what an astute and articulate chap. And then throughout the evening, as he came round and spoke to us, he was absolutely so charming and courteous and so appreciative of what we were doing. We thought, gosh, that's wonderful. And he was like that always. And I think it stemmed from a genuine love of the company and what it was producing for Scotland, and of course latterly as what it produced for the network, especially in the way of drama, which, you know, tends to get neglected as being a rather expensive luxury for a television company. But Bill definitely knew its worth.
Television drama, with its locations and large costs, demands big budgets that only UK networks can afford. Bill Brown's ambition was to put more Scottish drama on British screens. But first he had to persuade the big companies that controlled ITV.
Common sense.
I'd cheerfully leave common sense to common people. I am not interested in...
One ally was former chairman of Granada Television, a fellow Scot, Sir Dennis Foreman.
We were pretty big bullies in those days because the thing was set up with the major companies to produce programs and run the show. Bill got his colleagues to fight against this, and by the end of the day, the regions had a much better place in the sun, mainly because of Mr. William Brown of Scottish Television.
Strong programs with network appeal sometimes caused trouble back in Scotland. One of the most controversial was the story of Gorbals' hard man, Jimmy Boyle. The producer of Sense of Freedom was Jeremy Isaacs.
It was, of course, a very controversial thing in Glasgow and in Scotland, because people wanted to know what on earth are STV doing, spending money making a program about Jimmy Boyle, a film about Jimmy Boyle. And Bill, once he was convinced of the merit of the script and the worth of the project, stuck by it through thick and thin in a way which I found absolutely admirable. And it was justified in the end, because the programme was stirred things up a bit, of course, but was much admired and caused a hoo-ha. It gave a great deal of interest and satisfaction. But the extraordinary thing was the risk that was involved in that. And Bill, once he believed it was right, took that risk and stuck by it.
Jeremy Isaacs also went on to launch Channel 4. The early years were stormy, but Isaacs again had an ally in Bill Brown, appointed to the Channel 4 board as one of the representatives of ITV.
There was a suspicion that they were in there to put the boot in and keep us in order and make sure we didn't act against ITV's interest. But actually, all of them, and very particularly Bill, acted from the word go, as they should have done, in the interests of the channel and the purposes that the channel was set up to carry out. And he was a very strong and supportive colleague who always concentrated on the main constructive issue that was in front of us and never tried to score points or take the thing down in any way. I was very, very glad to have him at my side in that difficult period, and Channel 4 owes Bill Brown a lot, as well as ITV does.
I remember a journalist telling me that he was facing a legal action for something he did, and Bill had said to him, "It's not the money, you tell the truth, we'll defend you." That was Bill, utterly straightforward.
In the 1980s, programme output, reputation and producer confidence grew in the drama department at Scottish Television.
Strangulation for the ligature.
We don't have ligatures in Maryhill.
We started thinking about producing drama for the network at the end of the 70s.
and he was very supportive of the notion that we should, make a strong impact in a Scottish voice on the network. So in a sense, his vision is behind some of the notable successes that we've had over the years. He was behind, if you like, Take the High Road. He always maintained a great interest in High Road over the years. He supported the idea of our doing a thriller, which eventually developed into Taggart. He took a great interest in The Advocates, McCLUE, more recently, Dr. Finlay, so that his name, in a sense, although he was not actively involved in any of the programs, he was behind them because he supported the idea of making these programs and getting and really getting a very strong identity for Scottish television and the network for quality drama.
The longest-serving member of the board of Scottish Television had the closest view of Bill as a campaigner in franchise battles and as a business leader, Sir Charles Fraser.
Bill had, as you know, spent virtually his whole working life in Scottish television, and in that I immediately think of the word consistency. Bill was very consistent. He struck me as being the archetypal lowland Scot. He was well-organized, well-disciplined, really an excellent businessman, and I have touched many businesses in my career, and I dare to say that Bill could really have run any of them. He had great gifts of managing business.
At the end of the 1980s, another crisis. Prime Minister Thatcher, hostile to old ITV, decided public service television should be broken up by competition, which threatened small companies like Scottish Television with takeover by bigger media groups in England.
I mean, we in Scotland always tend to overrate our own importance in numerical terms. The fact is that Scotland's about the same population as Greater Manchester, and it really was a tribute to Bill that the independence of Scottish television was really never in question, because he was such a prominent figure. I mean, he was one of the dominant figures in the whole story of ITV in this country. At the time of the Downing Street Summit in the 80s, Bill was one of the two representatives from ITV. I mean, he really was, he led the entire industry for a long period.
The leaders of ITV, summoned to Downing Street, were denounced for tolerating restrictive union practices, and impatient Mrs. Thatcher decreed an auction of ITV licences to the highest bidders to introduce new blood. But back in central Scotland in 1991, Scottish won another 10-year licence on good terms.
Well, that's all right then.
The successful bid promised to extend the range and quality of Scottish-made programmes, and today, local output is almost double that of past decades.
I mean, this is a bit boring for me. This is only the fourth one.
Despite relentless business pressures, Bill pursued his interests in the arts, particularly opera, which he encouraged onto Scottish screens. After the STV studio at the Theatre Royal burned down, Bill Brown had become involved with a friend, the conductor Alex Gibson, to rebuild the theatre as a new home for Scottish opera. His love of the arts was recognised by his appointment in 1992 as chairman of the Scottish Arts Council.
Well, Bill was appointed by the Secretary of State to be chairman of the Arts Council in 1992, and he was chair for 4 years. And I think he was probably chair during 4 of the most turbulent years we have had in many, many years. I mean, during that time, we were devolved from the Arts Council of Great Britain. We had 4 years of trying to resolve the problems of the orchestras and the opera orchestra, which seemed at the time to be completely insoluble, and gave him and myself and many of us a great deal of frustration. But we also had very positive times, and it was during his time that we saw the National Lottery come on stream. We introduced crafts into the Arts Council. And I think the thing about Bill was that whatever faced him, he was always a gentleman, always unflurried, and always able to see the positive in everything that might challenge him.
The camera crew you see here today are not here to record the words of the chairman, but they are making a programme about Sandy Stoddart, who made this statue of Athena. You can see the programme on Scottish on the 25th of June. If you didn't hear that, I said the 25th of June.
Bill was one of a small group of successful businessmen who also served the arts in Scotland. Another lived close to Bill in Bearsden, Lord McFarlane.
Bill Brown was certainly one of the most civilised, cultivated, erudite and effective businessmen in Scotland. But the marvellous thing was that he had this enormous interest in the arts. Scottish opera was dear to his heart, Scottish National Orchestra, Scottish ballet he came to many times, and every single one of the major arts interests in Scotland was something that interested he and Nancy, and we many, many times shared happy cultural experiences together.
Honoured with the gold medal of the Royal Television Society, there were also honorary doctorates from his old university in Edinburgh and from Strathclyde University in Glasgow.
Congratulations and welcome to Strathclyde.
Bill retired as chairman of the Arts Council in March 1996. Now, as captain of Prestwick Golf Club in his native Ayrshire, he planned to get back to his other great enthusiasm.
He had an enormous capacity for enjoyment, whether it was that boring game golf or whatever it was. Bill was keen on it and he loved it.
We enjoyed playing golf together. I didn't play nearly often enough, and he gave me a row for that quite properly. But I mean, I think one of his proudest achievements, ironically, would be being captain of Prestwick Golf Club.
I think the only set of programmes that he pushed on his journalists was a programme about amateur golf, because he had become so excited about getting his handicap down. The only problem with the programme about 12 handicapped golfers is that it goes on for hours and hours, and it didn't work. And I think then Bill said, let the journalists get on with it.
Anytime you visit Disneyland Paris.
Finally, in May 1996, after 39 years, Bill Brown retired from Scottish television, surrounded by family and by friendship.
I would like to propose Bill Brown and Nancy.
It was a night of celebration.
Gus, I wish you and all your colleagues every success for the future. A television company, more than most, relies on the abilities and the commitment of the people who work there. And although individuals come and go over the years, the team spirit survives. I know this company has a spirit and an instinct for survival, which will see it through whatever challenges and tests it may encounter.
Bill Brown's qualities and the service he gave to broadcasting and the arts in Scotland are unmatched and fondly remembered by all those who worked for him and by his many friends in public life.
Bill had marvellous old-fashioned qualities. The words that come to mind when you think of Bill are integrity, decency, gentility, grace. He was a man of real grace.
Bill Brown was quiet, strong, sincere, somebody you could trust, somebody you couldn't help admiring and liking. He was special.
Bill loved his job. He had a great time as managing director and chairman of STV. And all in all, he's one of the happy men, one of the successful men, and one of the really nice men of television. And it's a terrible loss to all of us and to me that he's no longer with us.
Scotland has a sprinkling of people of great stature, and he certainly has been one of them. Contributed so much to all kinds of the arts, the entertainment scene, and all of us felt the same about him. He was one of the good guys and one of the best.